Under the light of a full moon on a cloudy night, a lone voice speaks of a single cup. The scene is set at a grand, multi-tiered traditional pagoda, its windows glowing warmly in the dark, nestled in a remote mountain range. Inside, two men sit across from each other. One is an old man with a white beard, the other, a weathered man with long, silver hair. The old man breaks the silence with a thoughtful hum. The old man, Gwairionja, holds a small bottle of liquor. He complains, stating he has waited for decades, only for his guest to have a single cup, calling him a cold-hearted person. The silver-haired man, his face marked by a scar, sits silently as Gwairionja pours him a drink. Gwairionja continues to pour, reminiscing about the past. Come to think of it, he says, when I first met you, we were both young. Gwairionja's expression is distant, lost in a memory from long ago. The silver-haired man listens in silence, his weary, scarred face showing the weight of the years. Gwairionja recalls that their first meeting was 40 years ago. The scene transitions into a flashback, as Gwairionja narrates that it was 40 years ago when he first met this man. In the past, a much younger version of the protagonist, with dark hair and a determined gaze, stood before a younger Gwairionja. He made a request, please use the great regression technique to send me back to the past. The younger Gwairionja is taken aback, his eyes wide with shock at the audacious request. Gwairionja remembers the scene clearly, the young man standing resolute before him as he mentions the great regression technique. He reflects that this technique was one of the great achievements of the Gwai family, researched for centuries, but considered nearly impossible to use. Even he, Gwairionja, who could have completed it, had no choice but to give up on the technique. Frustrated, he had crumpled the research papers. The 5 materials needed to complete the technique were simply impossible to gather. He remembers the feeling of defeat, believing it was an impossible task. Returning to the present, Gwairionja reveals the deal he made. He would perform the technique, but only if the man brought him all the required materials. The first material, the thunder bell, a sacred artifact of the heavenly wind cult. The second, the divine incense brazier, a sacred artifact of the divine dragon family. The third, the core essence of the 10,000-year carp. The fourth, the secret demonic soul of the demonic cult. Gwairionja admits that out of all the materials, the only thing he was able to get was the 5 million nyang. He reveals that the man in front of him had spent several decades obtaining everything else. To get the final material, the secret demonic soul of the demonic cult, he had even disappeared from the world for a long time. Gwairionja, holding his cup, admits he thought the man had probably died in some nameless valley. He looks at his guest, utterly bewildered, and asks, "This is so hard to believe. How on earth did you get all those materials?" The silver-haired man takes a slow sip. He admits that he once cursed the great regression technique for its impossible demands, and even considered killing Gwairionja to be free of it. Gwairionja listens, his expression unreadable as he processes the confession. The man reflects on the past. He was young when they first met, but now he is a weathered old man. He muses that the air around him has changed, wondering if it was an inevitable transformation needed to pursue the technique for so long. Taking another sip, Gwairionja finally asks the question that has been lingering for decades. Why exactly are you trying to go back to the past? The man slams his cup down, the sound echoing in the quiet room. His eyes burn with a fiery intensity, and from his lips comes a single, chilling reason: for revenge. Gwairionja is visibly stunned by the raw hatred in the man's answer. He asks if it was truly impossible for the man to get revenge with his current skills, to the point that he needed to regress. The man's answer is a simple, firm yes. Gwairionja presses on. Who on earth do you hate so much? The man's gaze is cold and hard, a storm brewing in his eyes. He utters a name that causes Gwairionja's world to freeze in shock: HWA Mugi. A horrifying flashback begins. At the hands of HWA Mugi, the leaders of the 3 strongest groups that supported the Murim world all met their demise. The Murim Alliance leader was killed. The Unorthodox Alliance leader was killed. And even the Heavenly Demon was killed. All of them fell to the strongest person in history, HWA Mugi. He was, without a doubt, the strongest person of that era, standing atop a mountain of corpses. Gwairionja is terrified, sweating as he realizes the magnitude of his friend's target. He exclaims that even by going back to the past, he doesn't think the man can defeat HWA Mugi. Even so, the man grits his teeth, his determination unwavering. I must kill him no matter what. The man then reveals a personal connection. The heavenly demon, who died by his hands, was my father. Gwairionja's eyes widen in shock at this revelation. However, the man clarifies that his desire for revenge isn't because HWA Mugi killed his father, nor is it for his brother. He states that for people who have given their lives to the demonic path, death is not a big deal. Gwairionja is confused. So why? The man's face darkens as he explains the true reason. On that day, HWA Mugi also killed servants, cooks, and even young children who knew nothing of martial arts. The memory of the massacre is vivid and brutal. He even killed all the cats and dogs that were kept there. Gwairionja refuses to believe it, exclaiming that HWA Mugi wouldn't do something so senselessly cruel. The man coldly replies that he doesn't care if Gwairionja believes him or not. He declares that in the current age, he won't be able to kill HWA Mugi, so he must go to the past. and before he kills him, he will ask him one question. He looks out into the night, posing the question that haunts him. Why did a person as strong as him need to kill even children? Gwai Ryonja is left speechless. After a moment of contemplation, Gwai Ryonja makes a proposal. If the great regression technique really succeeds and you go back to the past, can you do me a favor? He asks. The silver-haired man simply responds, what is it? With an unusually serious expression, Gwai Ryonja begins to lay out his condition. If you go back to the past, he insists, please come and find me. The man, unfazed, asks a simple question, what for? With a grimly serious expression, Gwai Ryonja reveals his strange request. I want you to stop me from getting married. A long silence hangs in the air, broken only by the sound of laughter. The protagonist, who has been stone-faced until now, bursts into laughter at the sheer absurdity of the favor. Despite the man's laughter, Gwai Ryonja insists, I'm not kidding, please stop me. He wants to be told to live alone for the rest of his life. Seeing his friend's earnestness, the man smiles faintly. All right, he says, I promise you that. With the promise made, the man stands up. It's time. Let's go to the place where the great regression technique will be used. As they walk, the man asks Gwai Ryonja if he's all right. The old man reassures him, revealing the cost of his quest. I lost one arm and one eye, but that was a cheap price to pay in order to obtain the secret demonic soul. They arrive at a hidden chamber. Before them lie the fruits of their decades-long quest, the giant thunder bell, the divine incense brazier, the core essence, and a wooden chest. Gwai Ryonja solemnly holds a small, ornate box containing the final, most costly material, the secret demonic soul. He opens the box, and a dark orb of energy, the secret demonic soul, floats out, swirling with immense power. The soul's dark energy begins to fill the room, wrapping around Gwai Ryonja as he begins the ancient ritual. Gwai Ryonja chants, his hands pressed together. The power flows from him, causing the thunder bell to glow with a purple light. The energy then activates the other artifacts. The divine incense brazier emits a mystical smoke, and the core essence on its table begins to radiate a brilliant green aura. Focusing all his might, Gwai Ryonja channels the combined energies, which swirl around him in a dazzling display of power. The immense power surges forth, beginning to warp the space before him. A sphere of raw, chaotic energy forms, condensing the power of the artifacts into a single point. Gwai Ryonja strains, his face contorted with effort, as he struggles to control the violent power he has unleashed. With a final, desperate push, the sphere of energy shatters, ripping open the fabric of reality itself. A portal is born. He shouts in triumph, I did it. He turns to his friend, his face a mask of exhausted pride and excitement. Are you seeing this? I told you I did it. But as Gwai Ryonja celebrates his success, he is met with an unnerving silence. The silver-haired man is nailing, his body trembling and head bowed, seemingly in great pain. Gwai Ryonja's triumphant expression fades, replaced by a somber, knowing look as he gazes at the portal. His gaze is heavy with unspoken words, a mix of regret and resolve. He swallows hard, his moment of triumph turning into one of solemn duty. Finally, he turns to his friend and says, I'm sorry. Gwai Ryonja takes a step forward, his apology echoing with a heavy weight of finality. I'm really sorry. As the protagonist remains seated, unable to move, Gwai Ryonja makes a final promise. I promise I'll definitely look for you and tell you about the impending disaster. Gwai Ryonja then turns and walks towards the swirling vortex. It's my family's greatest wish to go back to the past. It's also mine as well. He is going to take this journey for himself. But he stops, a look of surprise on his face as he glances back, sensing a change in the man he is leaving behind. The protagonist looks up, a dawning horror and understanding on his face. I can't move my body. He realizes the truth in this moment of betrayal. His demonic acupoint has been sealed. Gwai Ryonja has paralyzed him, ensuring he alone will be sent back through the portal. An old protagonist with long, white hair confronts another elder, Gwai Ryonja. With eyes glowing red in fury, he demands to know how Gwai Ryonja could betray him. Cornered by the intense accusation, Gwai Ryonja looks on with a desperate expression. The two stand facing each other, the weight of a lifetime of effort and a moment of betrayal hanging between them. Unleashing his rage, the protagonist strikes Gwai Ryonja, screaming out his frustration and disbelief. Gwai Ryonja cries out in pain as he reels back from the powerful blow. Overcome with guilt, Gwai Ryonja begins to weep, admitting that he lost his mind for a moment and offering a sincere apology. He continues his apology, acknowledging the immense effort the protagonist had put into gathering the now-lost materials. The protagonist listens in silence, his sharp gaze fixed on the remorseful Gwai Ryonja. As Gwai Ryonja looks up in despair, the protagonist's hand reaches out towards him. While helping the coughing elder, the protagonist confesses that he is also a selfish person who only cared for himself, which is how he gathered the materials in the first place. His voice is cold and menacing, as he states that he would have killed anyone else for such a betrayal. However, his expression softens as he extends his hand, offering forgiveness by saying, I'll understand since it's you. The protagonist places a comforting hand on Gwai Ryonja's shoulder, thanking him for waiting his whole life for this moment. Gwai Ryonja is completely stunned, his eyes wide with a mix of shock, relief, and gratitude. A faint, knowing smile appears on the protagonist's face, showing that he has passed the test of forgiveness. Tears stream down Gwai Ryonja's face as he stammers out another heartfelt apology. He continues to weep, completely overwhelmed by the protagonist's act of grace. Suddenly, the world around them begins to lose its color, shifting into monochrome as the protagonist questions what is happening. The image of a weeping Gwai Ryonja fades into the background as the protagonist's senses sharpen to the strange phenomenon. In this colorless world, butterflies begin to flutter around them as they appear to walk away from each other, symbolizing a great change or parting. The scene seems to shatter like glass. The protagonist realizes with a jolt that everything has come to a complete stop. He looks at the frozen, grayscale form of Gwai Ryonja, utterly bewildered by the impossible situation. A mysterious voice resonates from the void, declaring that he has successfully passed all the tests. In a brilliant flash, a divine being materializes before him, an old man with a magnificent white beard, cloaked in golden light and flowing robes, signifying the true beginning of the regression process. With Gwai Ryonja still frozen at his side, the protagonist stares down this powerful new entity, demanding to know just who or what has interrupted his fateful moment. The divine being reveals its identity, stating that it is the one who can send the protagonist back to the past, much to his shock. It scoffs at the protagonist's methods, explaining that the logic of the heavens is beyond human comprehension and that mere physical materials could never make time travel possible. The being reveals the truth. The real materials for the technique were never the collected items, but the lifetime of effort the protagonist offered to gather them. It explains that he has passed a series of tests, living with a single-minded goal, sacrificing everything he had, and the final, most crucial test of all, forgiving Gwai Ryonja. The being emphasizes that forgiving his betrayer was the most difficult test, yet the protagonist managed to pass it with ease. Having passed the tests, the protagonist formally makes his request, pleading with the being to fulfill his wish and send him back to the past. The divine being looks down on him and asks a simple but profound question. What does he intend to do once he returns to the past? With cold determination etched on his face, the protagonist declares his new purpose: to kill those who deserve to die and save those who do not. When asked if that is all, he admits he also wants to live a meaningful life, revealing his journey was fueled by deep regret for the life he lived. When asked what he regrets, he screams in anguish that he regrets all of it, lamenting that his life was never his own and was manipulated by some unknown force until it ended. The divine being listens intently to the protagonist's pained confession, its expression thoughtful. Intrigued, the being states that it looks forward to seeing what kind of new life the protagonist will lead as it summons a fiery portal to begin the regression. The butterflies that signified the freezing of time reappear, now bursting with color, heralding the journey back to the past. Before he departs, the protagonist looks back at the now unfrozen Gwai Ryonja and offers a sincere, final apology. He pauses for a moment, his expression a mixture of resolve and sorrow, before turning away for good. Suddenly, Gwai Ryonja shamelessly shouts out a reminder about his promise, pleading with the protagonist to stop him from getting married in the past. The protagonist cracks a faint, weary smile, seemingly accepting the absurd, final request from his old friend. With a final farewell, he turns his back and walks resolutely into the swirling, fiery portal of time. Gwai Ryonja shouts after him one last time, desperate to make sure his message has been heard. As the protagonist dissolves into light, Gwai Ryonja's final, odd plea echoes in the void. Remember to do what I told you. In a flash, his eyes snap open. The regression is complete. The protagonist is now Hui Woon, a young man once again, his old, weary body replaced with the vigor of youth. He finds himself in a vast, sunlit courtyard, surrounded by a massive, cheering crowd that is focused on a grand palace in the distance. His young eyes, though retaining the wisdom of a lifetime, look around with fresh wonder as he takes in the vibrant world of the past. Hui Woon looks up, his eyes wide with wonder, fixing on a towering statue, a familiar landmark from a time he thought was lost forever. The deafening roar of a lively crowd surrounds him, the sheer energy and vibrancy of the past washing over him and confirming the impossible reality of his return. A confident smile plays on Hui Woon's lips as the realization sinks in. He has truly returned to the past. His expression quickly sobers as he looks ahead, the weight of his knowledge and the burden of his mission settling upon his young shoulders. From the midst of the crowd, Hui Woon looks up at a grand dais where a powerful figure sits on an ornate throne, surrounded by his followers and exuding an overwhelming, ominous aura. It's the heavenly demon, Hui Woon's father. He sits with an imposing and regal presence, his stern gaze sweeping over the crowd from his magnificent throne. A close-up reveals his powerful, commanding eyes, which hold the authority of a man who stands at the pinnacle of the world. Overwhelmed with emotion at seeing him alive and well, Hui Woon whispers a single, heartfelt word: Father. Despite the roaring crowd, the heavenly demon's sharp senses pick up the sound, and his eyes react as if he heard the whisper from across the square. A faint, knowing smile touches Hui Woon's lips. It is the smile of a son seeing his father again, and the smile of a predator who has just begun his hunt. His reverie is broken as a man in the crowd yells impatiently, revealing Hui Woon's identity in this era. How long are you going to keep us waiting for, second young master? A muscular man with reddish-brown hair, Gu Pyungho, points forward with a grin, holding a massive sword as he roars. Let's start this fight. Across the dueling platform, Hui Woon, dressed in blue, stands calmly with his own sword, observing his opponent. A crowd of onlookers watches from the sidelines as he thinks to himself, I see. A slight, knowing smile appears on Hui Woon's face as the memory solidifies in his mind. He continues his thought, today is. Hui Woon's eyes narrow with determination. He remembers this day all too well. It's the day of the new demon skirmish, the very event that marked the beginning of his downfall in his past life. The narration explains the context of this event. Hui Woon's father, the heavenly demon, had made a shocking declaration. The next leader of the cult would not be chosen based on bloodline alone. This announcement caused a massive uproar within the cult. It meant that anyone, regardless of their lineage, could become the next heavenly demon, as long as they were the strongest. To prove he was serious, the heavenly demon launched the new demon skirmish, a grand fighting competition to determine the next generation leaders of the cult. The rules were simple. The victor of the skirmish would earn the chance to challenge one of the heavenly demon's two sons. Whoever won that final battle would be granted a single wish by the heavenly demon himself. Back in the present, Gu Pyungho glares at Hui Woon with a condescending sneer, taunting him. How about giving up while you can? Hui Woon stands undeterred before the cheering crowd, his expression unreadable. He is no longer the naive young master from his past. As Hui Woon remains silent, lost in thought, a flashback to his previous life begins, triggered by the familiar scene. He remembers it clearly now. Back then, he felt deeply offended that Gu Pyungho chose him, believing it was because he was seen as the easier target compared to his older brother. But now, with the wisdom of his future life, he clenches his teeth, realizing there was a more sinister reason for Gu Pyungho's choice. The memory reveals the truth. Gu Pyungho had bribed a cook in the kitchen, instructing him to mix an energy-dispersing poison into Hui Woon's rice, ensuring he couldn't use his powers. Because of this dirty trick, Hui Woon was powerless. The image shows him collapsing in defeat, his sword clattering to the ground amidst splatters of his own blood. He remembers desperately telling his father what had happened, pleading his case, but the heavenly demon didn't say a word. In fact, his father looked at him with eyes that seemed to blame him, disappointed that his own son was weak enough to fall for such a petty trick. The memory of his past self screaming in anguish fills his mind. The defeat pushed him to his limits, but it was only the beginning of his troubles. Because of the mistakes and failures that followed this initial loss, he found himself steadily losing his position in the war for succession, sinking further into despair. Returning to the present, Hui Woon stands with a newfound resolve. He understands it all now. Everything, all his suffering and failures, started from today's defeat. Gu Pyungho's voice yanks him back to reality. Second young master, are you distracted even though I'm right in front of you? Hui Woon's eyes snap into focus, the past now serving as his greatest weapon. Hui Woon is silent for a moment, the cheers of the crowd and the image of his opponent grounding him firmly in this second chance he's been given. Breaking the silence, Hui Woon looks at his opponent with a calm, almost dismissive expression. What did you say your name was? Gu Pyungho is shocked speechless. Enraged at being so blatantly disrespected, Gu Pyungho yells, are you ignoring me? Hui Woon calmly feigns ignorance before answering, as if the name were barely worth remembering. Oh, right, Gu Pyungho. The narration provides context on his opponent. He's the fifth disciple of one of the 8 demon supremes, Gu Junpa, also known as the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. But to Hui Woon, he is simply a stepping stone. Gu Pyungho takes Hui Woon's taunt as a sign of confidence, his own energy flaring. Hey, seeing as how you dare to mess with me, it must mean you're confident in your abilities. Hui Woon glances up at the throne where his father, the heavenly demon, sits watching. A profound realization dawns on him. I didn't know this in the past, he thinks, but I think I do now. Looking at his father's impassive eyes, Hui Woon finally understands the truth. His father already knew he had been poisoned. He wasn't being cruel or indifferent. In his own way, the heavenly demon was testing his son, observing how he would overcome such a disadvantageous situation. Hui Woon knows that with the skills learned in his past life, he could defeat Gu Pyungho in a single move without any inner energy. However, he can't show his true, future-honed skills here. He needs to keep his full power hidden for now. With newfound resolve, Hui Woon clenches his fist, ready to make a declaration that will shock everyone present. He raises his fist high in the air and shouts for all to hear, I confidently say this in front of all the heroes of our cult. I'll fight Gu Pyungho, my challenger, without using any inner energy. The crowd is stunned into silence by the declaration. One of the onlookers mutters in disbelief, huh. Even Gu Pyungho is taken aback, his eyes wide with shock as he blurts out, what? Another member of the crowd, a man with a scarred face, seems impressed by the bold move. Oh, he has some guts, he comments. Suddenly, the crowd's initial shock turns into roaring approval. They begin chanting Hui Woon's title, Unrivaled Swordsman, Unrivaled Swordsman. Gu Pyungho grits his teeth in fury as the crowd cheers for his opponent. You little, he seethes, feeling utterly humiliated. Not wanting to lose face, Gu Pyungho makes a declaration of his own, raising his fist in the air. If that's how you're playing, then I, too, won't be using my inner energy. Gu Pyungho holds his fist high, his face a mask of furious pride as he echoes Hui-Woon's condition. Some spectators are unimpressed by this development. What? They're both not going to use their inner energy. That sounds like it'll be boring. One complains. Another scoffs. What a waste of time. Trapped by his own pride, Gu Pyungho grips his massive sword, cursing under his breath. Damn it. He warns Hui-Woon, second young master. Even though I won't be using my inner energy, you'd best remember that my sword has no eyes. To emphasize his point, he smashes the blade into the ground, shattering the paving stones. Hui-Woon looks down at his hand, flexing his fingers. He feels a sense of unfamiliarity in his own younger body, wondering if he'll be able to move it with the precision he's used to. Gu Pyungho charges forward, swinging his enormous sword off his shoulder. Unsheath your sword, he bellows. Hui-Woon remains perfectly still, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword but making no move to draw it. He calmly states, I don't think I need to use a sword against you though. The crowd bursts into laughter at Hui-Woon's supreme confidence. Gu Pyungho's face flushes with rage as someone shouts, Bhaha, dude, he's totally looking down on you. A terrifying, predatory grin spreads across Gu Pyungho's face. He snarls, I won't kill you since you're the cult leader's son, Gu Pyungho growls, his eyes glowing with malice, but I'll take an arm of yours. He leaps into the air, bringing his sword down with deadly force. As Gu Pyungho's massive sword crashes down, Hui-Woon moves with a fluid grace that belies the tension of the moment. He effortlessly flows out of the path of the powerful downward slash, the blade missing him by mere inches. The evasion is perfect. A thought of satisfaction flashes through Hui-Woon's mind as he repositions himself. Good, my body is reacting instantly, faster than I thought. He isn't just defending, he is setting the stage for what comes next. Gu Pyungho misses and immediately follows up with a powerful horizontal swing, but Hui-Woon is already a step ahead. Hui-Woon gracefully backflips over the sweeping blade, showcasing an agility that defies Gu Pyungho's brute strength. He lands perfectly on his feet and immediately closes the distance between them, moving faster than Gu Pyungho can react. A faint smile plays on Hui-Woon's lips as he feels the vitality of his youth. My heart is beating with so much strength at this age, he thinks, reveling in the feeling. Gu Pyungho grits his teeth in frustration, sweating from exertion. Hui-Woon's effortless dodges are starting to get to him. Seeing Hui-Woon's smirk, Gu Pyungho loses his temper completely. You fucking bastard, you dare laugh, he roars, bringing his sword down in a blind rage. But Hui-Woon is no longer there. He dodges under the swing with ease, leaving Gu Pyungho momentarily stunned by his speed. Before Gu Pyungho can recover, Hui-Woon slams a powerful elbow strike straight into his jaw. Gu Pyungho chokes out a pained gasp, the force of the blow rattling him to his core. Hui-Woon gives him no time to breathe, immediately following up with a brutal punch to the face. The assault is relentless. Hui-Woon, using only his bare hands, lands a flurry of devastating blows, turning Gu Pyungho's face into a bloody mess. Another vicious punch connects, snapping Gu Pyungho's head back as blood flies from his mouth. Throughout the brutal beating, Hui-Woon's face remains cold and emotionless, a stark contrast to his opponent's pained expression. Hui-Woon finishes his relentless combination with two powerful palm strikes, sending Gu Pyungho staggering. As Gu Pyungho falls, Hui-Woon grabs his arm. Was it this hand? He asks with chilling calmness. The one you used to give the poison. Gu Pyungho's eyes widen in pure terror. He can't believe it. Hui-Woon knows. With a sickening crack that echoes through the silent arena, Hui-Woon decisively breaks Gu Pyungho's arm. A close-up on Hui-Woon's face shows his cold, unwavering determination. This is not just a fight, it's a reckoning. The onlooking crowd gasps collectively, shocked by the brutal and sudden turn of events. Gu Pyungho lets out a final, agonized scream before collapsing onto the ground, utterly defeated. Hui-Woon stands tall over his fallen opponent, his expression unreadable. The battle is decisively over. He looks out with steely eyes, a new resolve hardening within him. Now that I've returned to the past, I'll no longer let you people influence how I live my life. From his throne, the heavenly demon raises his hand, signaling the official end of the match. Amidst the stunned silence of the crowd, the heavenly demon's voice resonates through the arena, upholding his promise. As I've said, I'll grant you a wish. Leaning forward from his throne, the heavenly demon looks down at his victorious son, his expression unreadable. Tell me what you desire. Hui-Woon stands in the center of the arena, looking at his defeated opponent. The entire cult watches, waiting in silence to hear what wish he will ask for. He thinks to himself, knowing that in this situation, people would normally request a powerful artisan sword or a secret martial arts manual to increase their strength. He knows that this is what everyone, including his father, is expecting him to ask for, a predictable request for power. But Hui-Woon has learned from his past life. He has a different goal in mind now. But this time I'll follow my instincts, he thinks, before beginning to state his wish. I wish. With a slight, confident smile, he looks toward his father and makes his unexpected request. To go on a hunt with you, father. After Hui-Woon's decisive victory, his father, the heavenly demon, looks at him with a thoughtful, unreadable expression, remaining silent. On the dueling stage, Gu Pyungho kneels in defeat, battered and bleeding, having been completely overpowered by Hui-Woon. The heavenly demon asks his son an important question, granting him a wish for his victory. You want to hunt with me? Hui Woon confirms with a confident smile. Yes, I heard you enjoyed hunting when you were young. I'd like to learn how to hunt from you. The heavenly demon's eyes narrow slightly as he processes his son's unusual request, a flicker of surprise in his gaze. After a moment of consideration, he accepts the proposition. We'll depart tomorrow at dawn, he declares. Having made his decision, the heavenly demon turns and departs, leaving Hui Woon alone on the platform. Hui Woon stands alone, a thoughtful and determined expression on his face as he gazes into the distance, contemplating his next moves. He looks down with a cold, calculating gaze, thinking to himself about his defeated opponent. What an idiot. Hui Woon glances over at the defeated Gu Pyungho, thinking how unbelievable it was that his opponent's wish would have been so pathetic. Hui Woon smirks, taunting his fallen rival, asking what his name was again. Enraged and humiliated, Gu Pyungho screams for Hui Woon's execution. With newfound clarity and purpose, Hui Woon declares internally that he's no longer interested in the reckless, short-sighted ambitions that once defined their lives. The scene transitions to the grand estate of the cult, under a beautiful, starry twilight sky. Back in his room, Hui Woon looks at his reflection in a mirror, touching his face as he marvels at being young again, a stark contrast to the old man he had become. As he looks into the mirror, the reflection of his older, white-haired self from his previous life appears, a silent reminder of the long and arduous path he has already walked. His thoughts turn to his ultimate enemy, Hwa Mugi. He schemes, what could he be doing right now? If I can find and kill him before he becomes strong, then I can resolve this whole matter easily. But he acknowledges the problem is that Hwa Mugi is hard to find. He recalls how Hwa Mugi appeared in the Jianghu, as if he fell from the skies, a sudden and calamitous force. Hui Woon remembers the devastation Hwa Mugi caused, destroying the Murim Alliance, the Unorthodox Alliance, and the demonic cult before disappearing from the world, leaving little information behind. He knows that simply announcing Hwa Mugi's name to the world in an attempt to find him would be a dangerously provocative act. In the end, Hui Woon reaffirms his path. His top priority remains to become even stronger than his nemesis, Hwa Mugi. With his resolve strengthened, Hui Woon stands in his quarters, the light casting long shadows around him. A voice calls out to him from the doorway, addressing him respectfully as young master. A figure seen from behind enters his room and praises him for his performance in the duel. You fought excellently today. Hui Woon turns, a look of sudden realization on his face as he recognizes the person. Leon, he asks, surprised. A large woman with a cheerful face and hair in buns steps forward, formally introducing herself as bodyguard Leon. Hui Woon's memory clicks into place, now colored with the profound weight of his past life. That's right. Leon was with me, he thinks, the simple fact now carrying a much deeper meaning. Looking at her now, his mind fills with regret and new understanding. He realizes with a pang of guilt, I didn't know at this time that her huge size was because of the martial arts she learned. No, I never understood that it was all for my sake. He recalls the details of the body petrification technique, a secret art taught only to a select few. It grants the user the ability to make their body as tough as a rock, but its major flaw is that it makes the user's body incredibly large. The memory becomes painfully clear. Leon threw herself in front of him, using her own body to block the deadly sword aura sent by Hwa Mugi. Hui Woon lived thanks to her ultimate sacrifice. Pulled back to the present, Leon notices his intense stare and asks with innocent confusion, why are you looking at me like that? Hui Woon is struck by a new realization, thinking to himself, I didn't realize her voice sounded so nice. He continues his internal monologue, filled with regret. She was ready to throw her life away for me, but I only thought of her as a simple bodyguard at this time. Looking at her now, he admits his past ignorance. I took her for granted, just like how people take having oxygen in the air for granted. Hui Woon and Leon stand facing each other, a soft golden light enveloping them as he sees her in a completely new light. A wry smile plays on his lips as he thinks, she's bigger than I remembered, acknowledging the physical change her sacrifice caused. Leon looks back at him, her expression a mix of curiosity and confusion, silently questioning his strange behavior. Hui Woon's memory drifts back to the past, to the young Leon who was once praised as a great beauty, destined for a dazzling future. But then the once beautiful girl suddenly gained weight, her appearance drastically changing. Despite the change, she smiled brightly and made a promise to him, I'll protect you, young master. Hui Woon realizes with a pang of guilt, I didn't know back then that she had cried so much over becoming so fat, and I never noticed how her eyes became swollen because of that. I wonder how she felt. He reflects on the magnitude of her sacrifice. She gave up on her appearance when she could have been the greatest beauty in the world. He asks himself, how did I treat her after she did that? A painful memory surfaces of him recoiling from her as she cheerfully offered him food. He admits, perhaps, I treated her more coldly over time after she became fat. Overwhelmed by regret, his eyes fill with a deep sadness for his past cruelty and ignorance. Looking at her with unwavering determination, Hui Woon makes a solemn vow. Leon, I promise you this. He continues his promise, his voice filled with conviction. I'll get rid of the body petrification technique's side effects for you. Leon stares back, stunned into silence. Seeing his uncharacteristically intense expression, Leon becomes concerned and asks, "Young master, are you all right?" Hui-Woon collects himself, softening his expression. "I'm all right," he says, then corrects himself with a newfound sense of peace. "No, I'm good actually." Still puzzled by his change in demeanor, Leon remarks, "You're acting a little strange today." Hui-Woon smiles faintly, thinking to himself that she's as perceptive as ever. As expected of Leon, she's noticed how I've changed. With a confident grin, he turns to her and says, "Let's go, I'll show you something even stranger." He leads the way, his sword in hand. Leon follows him, completely bewildered. "Where are we going?" she asks. Hui-Woon simply replies, "To flip the dining table," a cryptic statement that only deepens her confusion. He leads her through the night to their destination, the estate's kitchens. It's here that the first act of his new life and his retribution is about to begin. Hui-Woon and Leon enter the kitchens, where the cooks are lined up, bowing nervously, sensing the gravity of the unexpected visit. Fixing his cold gaze on the head cook, Hui-Woon gets straight to the point, his voice cutting through the silence. "Why did you do it?" The head cook looks up, feigning ignorance and confusion. "Pardon, what do you mean?" he asks, trying to deflect the unasked question. Hui-Woon doesn't mince words. "I'm asking you why you poisoned my meal with the energy-dissipating poison." The direct accusation sends a jolt of panic through the cooks. The real culprit, a younger cook, flinches and frantically denies the charge. "I didn't do it," he exclaims, sweat beading on his forehead. Hui-Woon's gaze shifts to the panicked young cook, revealing his knowledge from the past. "Did you gamble away the 3,000 nyong that you received?" The cook freezes, shocked that he knows the exact amount. Hui-Woon internally recalls the sad story. The cook's son became addicted to gambling, racking up a huge debt. He blew through his parents' money, and even funds borrowed from friends, leading him to the desperate act of poisoning the young master's meal for a bribe. Cornered and exposed, the young cook collapses to the floor, sobbing and begging for his life. "I've committed a great mistake, please spare me, I was blinded by money." Ignoring the pleas, Hui-Woon presses for confirmation, his expression cold and detached. "Did Gu Pyungho look for you personally to give you the money?" Terrified, the cook can only admit the truth, his voice trembling as he confesses, "Yes." Continuing from the previous chapter, the scene is one of chaos. Hui-Woon is suspended in midair, his sword having just sliced through an opponent, sending a spray of blood across the room. Below him, another man looks up in utter shock. The other cooks, including the elderly cook Lim, are frozen in terror, their faces pale with shock and fear as they witness the bloody aftermath of Hui-Woon's swift justice. Hui-Woon lands, his expression cold and severe. He looks down at the terrified onlookers and sternly addresses them, questioning how a cook could dare to poison someone's food. Immediately, Cook Lim and the other kitchen staff fall to their knees, prostrating themselves on the floor. Cook Lim takes full responsibility, offering his most sincere apologies to the young master. Hui-Woon, however, is not appeased. He questions Cook Lim directly, asking why he's taking the blame when it was another who committed the crime of poisoning his meal. Hui-Woon maintains his sharp gaze, calmly observing the head cook's desperate attempt to take the fall. He knows there's more to this situation than meets the eye. He then poses a logical trap to Cook Lim. If he is responsible for everything that happens in the kitchen, does that mean anything unjust that happens in the entire cult is his father's fault? Cook Lim is stunned by the question. A young, innocent-looking girl in the background, likely a junior cook, can't help but blurt out that surely, that can't be the case, accidentally supporting Hui-Woon's point. Caught in Hui-Woon's logic and unable to argue, Cook Lim is rendered completely speechless, his face a mask of despair. With the matter settled, Hui-Woon turns and walks away with an air of authority. He tells them to stop the nonsense and simply cook him shredded chicken noodles, as it's been a while since he's had them. Cook Lim can only watch, still speechless and kneeling on the floor, as the young master walks away, having completely dismantled his attempt to cover for the real culprit. As Hui-Woon heads out, the young girl who spoke up earlier follows him, looking puzzled by his dinner request. She asks him, "Didn't you just have that a few days ago?" Hui-Woon doesn't break his stride, his expression unreadable as the girl's question hangs in the air. The girl watches him, her face filled with innocent curiosity, unaware of the deep meaning behind his simple food craving. In a moment of internal reflection, Hui-Woon thinks to himself that for him, the last time he ate that meal wasn't a few days ago, but a few decades. A clear sign of the vast life experience he holds from his regression. The scene shifts to the next day at dawn. We are at the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, where a new, imposing figure appears. It is Hui-Woon's father, the Heavenly Demon, a man with a powerful aura and a stern gaze. The Heavenly Demon looks at his son and questions him, asking about all the distracting belongings he's carrying for what should be a simple trip. Hui-Woon stands before his father, laden with a large backpack, a bow, and a quiver of arrows. He calmly explains that these are things needed for the next few days. His father notes that he only planned for a day's hunt. Hui-Woon replies with a knowing look, suggesting that his father might enjoy the hunt and decide to stay for a few more days himself. The Heavenly Demon's eye narrows slightly. He is a keen observer, and his son's unusual preparedness and confident demeanor have not gone unnoticed. As Hui-Woon walks past, his father comments on the ambitious dream he seems to harbor, a remark layered with both skepticism and a hint of intrigue. The scene pans out to reveal the vast and imposing mountain range that serves as the backdrop for their cult's domain, a truly breathtaking and intimidating landscape. Father and son venture into the wilderness, walking through a dense forest shrouded in a thick, mysterious fog. The hunt has begun. As they walk, the heavenly demon breaks the silence with a surprising observation, telling Hwi-woon, "You're better than I thought." The unexpected comment makes Hwi-woon's mind race. He immediately wonders if his father, with his keen perception, has seen through the ruse and noticed the skills he deliberately hid during his fight with Gu Pyungho. After a moment of tense silence, Hwi-woon decides that honesty is the best approach. He concludes that it would be better to just tell his father the truth. Hwi-woon candidly admits, "I was hiding my skills." Without missing a beat, his father, the heavenly demon, turns his head slightly and replies with a calm but knowing tone, "I noticed." A slight confident smirk plays on Hwi-woon's lips. He clarifies his position with a metaphor, stating, "I'm not a cat that hisses, but a beast that hides its claws." His father challenges the metaphor with a simple, sharp question, "Why would a beast hide its claws?" implying that true power has no need for concealment. Caught off guard by the direct question, Hwi-woon admits he hadn't considered that perspective. His father retorts, "That's why you're a cat," playfully dismissing his son's attempt at appearing formidable. Changing the subject, the heavenly demon gets to the heart of the matter, asking his son a direct question about his abilities. "How much of the soaring sword art have you mastered?" The narration explains the significance of this technique. The soaring sword art is a powerful style, passed down exclusively through the heavenly demon's bloodline. Furthermore, it is an extremely advanced martial art, comparable to the techniques used by the formidable demon supremes, highlighting its difficulty and power. With unwavering confidence, Hwi-woon looks his father in the eye and makes a bold declaration, "I've completely mastered it." To test this claim, the heavenly demon unleashes a sudden and powerful blast of energy directly at Hwi-woon without any warning. Hwi-woon instinctively dodges, but the attack is so fast it sears a hole through his backpack. He thinks to himself that if he hadn't turned his face, his entire cheek would have been gone. Hwi-woon confronts his father about the reckless attack, but the heavenly demon simply stands there, confirming with his actions that his son has indeed mastered the art. Hwi-woon questions what his father would have done if he hadn't managed to dodge. The heavenly demon explains that the attack was the price for lying, and a true master would have dodged it anyway. Hwi-woon, touching his cheek, cleverly retorts that even so, a scar wouldn't look good on a face that so resembles his father's. His father remains silent, his stern expression unreadable, but perhaps slightly impressed by his son's witty and bold response. For a brief moment, Hwi-woon feels a bead of sweat, wondering if he might have pushed his luck and gone overboard with his clever comeback. The heavenly demon turns his back and offers a rare and genuine compliment. He admits that for Hwi-woon to have completely mastered the art at his young age is truly worthy of praise. Hwi-woon is visibly surprised, a bead of sweat on his brow. He is clearly not used to receiving such direct praise from his formidable father. With the test concluded, the two continue their journey deeper into the sun-dappled forest, the atmosphere between them having subtly shifted. A small, genuine smile graces Hwi-woon's face as he looks at his father's back. In a quiet, sincere voice, he says, "Thank you." They proceed further into the wilderness, passing a large fallen log covered in vines, the destination of their hunt still unknown. After a while, the heavenly demon kneels to inspect the ground. He then turns to Hwi-woon and asks a new question, "Who did you learn hunting from?" Hwi-woon hesitates for a moment before answering, "My older brother." The answer seems to draw from his past life's memories. The mention of an older brother seems to confuse Hwi-woon in his current, youthful state, as he asks his father, "I had an uncle." The heavenly demon's expression becomes grim as he delivers a shocking piece of family history. "He died. I killed him when I was around your age." Hwi-woon is stunned into silence. Hwi-woon stands speechless, the weight of his father's words sinking in. This brutal revelation about the cult's succession and his family's history leaves him completely shocked. The heavenly demon looks at his stunned son and says, "You did great," a cryptic comment acknowledging the brutal reality of their family's history. He continues, looking off into the distance, otherwise, leaving the grim implication unspoken. Hwi-woon grimly finishes the thought in his own mind, realizing the stark truth. If his father hadn't killed his uncle, he himself would never have been born. The heavenly demon remains silent, his stoic profile offering no comfort, allowing the weight of his past actions to settle between them. They walk on in silence, the sound of their footsteps the only thing breaking the heavy atmosphere created by the dark revelation. In an internal monologue filled with newfound maturity, Hwi-woon reflects that even his powerful father must have been wounded by the act of fighting his own family. He muses that the stronger a person seems, the deeper their hidden wounds might be. His thoughts drift back in time, empathizing with the difficult position his father was in. He imagines his father's past self, realizing that back then, he must have felt he had no other solutions. Hwi-woon's expression shows understanding. He concludes that his father couldn't see a way to win the brutal successor war without killing his own brother. Clenching his fist with resolve, Hwi-woon makes his own stance clear. He tells his father that he can't do what his father was able to, firmly rejecting the path of fratricide. Looking at his father with serious eyes, he adds that his father already knows there's no need for Hui-woon to even consider such an act, attempting to draw a line between their destinies. A sinister, shadowy image of the heavenly demon appears as he gives a chilling response. Because my brother is that vicious and cruel, implying that Hui-woon will have no choice in the matter. A close-up on the heavenly demon's face shows his cold, determined expression as he speaks of his other son's cruelty. The conversation ends, and they continue their journey through the dense woods, the tension still palpable between them. Hui-woon internally scoffs at his father's words, thinking to himself, speaking ill of him when he's not around, noting the hypocrisy. The scenery shifts to a dramatic view of tall, precarious mountain spires, emphasizing the rugged and dangerous environment they are traversing. With incredible agility, the father and son duo leap down the steep, rocky cliffs, moving with a speed and grace that defies gravity. As he travels, Hui-woon's expression is pensive, a bead of sweat on his face as he processes the heavy conversation and the path that lies before him. While climbing a cliff face, Hui-woon reflects on his past life. He recalls that he never married, and because of that, he never knew what it was like to have children of his own. He lands firmly on the ground, his internal monologue continuing. This lack of experience makes him curious about the nature of their own relationship. He looks towards his father, who stands silhouetted on a higher ledge, and wonders, what kind of existence was I to father? As they continue walking along a ridge, Hui-woon is suddenly alerted by his father, who has stopped and is looking intently at something ahead. They stop at the edge of a cliff overlooking the forest below. The heavenly demon senses a presence and asks, is something there? His father turns to him, a slight smile on his face, and declares that he has found their next meal, our dinner. Hui-woon is bewildered, readying his bow but finding no visible target. He challenges his father's declaration, asking, we need to kill it, but how are you going to kill something you can't even see? The heavenly demon responds not with words but with a lesson. He commands Hui-woon, first, close your eyes and feel your surroundings. Hui-woon looks surprised by the unusual command, realizing this is his father's answer. A new kind of training is about to begin. Hui-woon closes his eyes in concentration and agrees to his father's instruction, simply saying, okay. As Hui-woon stands enveloped in a blue aura, his father explains the technique. Martial masters sense their opponents by feeling the vibrations in the surrounding air, a skill commonly known as sensing the energy flow of a being. Hui-woon tries to follow the instruction, but he finds it difficult. The only thing he can feel is the overwhelmingly powerful and fiery red energy flow emanating from his father, who is standing nearby. Seeing his son struggle, the heavenly demon provides the next step in the lesson. He instructs Hui-woon to send out his own energy in a single, focused line. He gives the final piece of instruction for this lesson. Hui-woon must then make that line of energy thinner and thinner without it breaking, a difficult exercise in focus and control. Continuing the lesson, the heavenly demon instructs his son, Hui-woon, telling him to think of his body as a ball of yarn. He elaborates on the technique, telling Hui-woon to slowly discharge his energy as if he were pulling a single thread from the ball. Hui-woon closes his eyes, concentrating intently as he tries to put his father's instructions into practice. A stream of blue energy extends from Hui-woon. The heavenly demon asks if he has reached it, and Hui-woon confirms that he can feel something. Hui-woon remains focused, his eyes closed. His father then asks him what he thinks the object is. The energy flows outwards, taking on a shape in the darkness. Hui-woon identifies it as a tree, and his father tells him to search that vicinity. The heavenly demon urges him to proceed slowly, as Hui-woon's energy continues to probe the darkness. Hui-woon's focus intensifies, sweat beading on his brow as he pushes his senses further. Suddenly, his energy makes contact with something else. Through his senses, the menacing face of a tusked wild boar appears in his mind. Hui-woon's eyes snap open, glowing with energy as he exclaims in shock, identifying the creature as a wild boar. In the sunlit forest, Hui-woon wonders if it might be a bear instead. His father notes its stiff fur and long body, concluding it feels like a wild boar. The heavenly demon looks at Hui-woon with a pensive expression before confirming, with a slight pause, that yes, it is a wild boar. Hui-woon stands silently as his father continues to observe him, a thoughtful expression on his face. The heavenly demon admits that at first, he was also unable to guess the animal correctly at such a distance, subtly praising Hui-woon's accomplishment. Hui-woon replies with a confident smirk, attributing his success to being gifted with a body that learns martial arts quickly, claiming it's not a big deal for him. The heavenly demon listens to his son's confident explanation, his expression unreadable. Later by a fire, the heavenly demon watches as Hui-woon expertly prepares the hunted boar. He asks when Hui-woon learned to do this, noting he seems far too skilled for a first-timer who supposedly learned from a book. Hui-woon touches the cooked boar and says he's glad it seems that way. In his mind, he admits it's because he hunted countless wild boars for food before he regressed. The heavenly demon is sitting on a tiger skin that Hui-woon brought. Hui-woon explains he prepared it to win his favor, remarking that it was worth carrying the heavy baggage. The heavenly demon closes his eyes and asks directly if Hwi-woon's goal for this hunt was to impress him and become the successor. Hwi-woon firmly denies it, stating he knows that kind of flattery wouldn't work on his father, and that he can become the successor on his own without his help. The heavenly demon remarks on the sheer amount of confidence Hwi-woon is displaying. Hwi-woon approaches the campfire where his father sits, who then asks him again for his true reason for wanting to hunt together. Hwi-woon faces his father, ready to reveal his true intentions. He states he had 2 reasons for the hunt. First, he wanted to learn everything possible from the heavenly demon to become stronger, a goal he believes he has already achieved on this trip. The heavenly demon listens to this first reason, his gaze fixed on his son. He then poses a critical question, probing the depth of Hwi-woon's ambition, what comes after getting stronger. Hwi-woon clarifies his ambition, explaining that he isn't trying to become stronger just to usurp the title of heavenly demon. He acknowledges his father is still healthy and strong, and he doesn't want to waste his youth aiming for that position. Looking up at the starry sky, Hwi-woon states that he is satisfied just learning the heavenly demon's martial arts without necessarily becoming the successor. His internal monologue reveals his true goal. He needs to quickly learn and master the 9 calamities demonic art, and even go beyond that level. He reveals the reason for his intense ambition. Even his father, the heavenly demon, who had mastered the 9 calamities demonic art, once lost to a formidable enemy named Hwa Mugi. Looking at the vast night sky, Hwi-woon reaffirms his determination. To face such a powerful foe, he must, at the very least, master his father's ultimate technique. After hearing Hwi-woon's first reason, the heavenly demon, with a sharp look, asks what the second reason is. Hwi-woon turns to his father, a slight, genuine smile on his face as he prepares to reveal his more personal motivation. He looks at the campfire between them and confesses that he simply wanted to spend some time alone with his father, as this is the first time they have ever done so. The heavenly demon scoffs, dismissing his son's sentiment as a useless emotion that will only get him killed in their brutal world. Hwi-woon argues back, asking why it's useless. He explains that getting to spend time with the strongest person in the world makes any activity extraordinary. If they sing, it's the world's greatest song. If they drink, it's the world's greatest liquor. The heavenly demon listens to his son's passionate explanation, his stern facade showing the slightest crack as he seems to process the unexpected words. He turns his head slightly, his gaze thoughtful and perhaps a little surprised by the depth of his son's feelings. Hwi-woon looks at his father, waiting in silence for a response. Hwi-woon reveals his vulnerability, admitting that whenever he tried to remember his father in his past life, he had no real memories of him, because memories of being scared don't count. With quiet determination, Hwi-woon declares that in this new life, he doesn't want to only have such memories, but he adds a clarification. His father shouldn't get too happy, as this endeavor is for his own sake. As the night sky begins to lighten, the heavenly demon announces that it's dawn and suggests they should go back now. Hwi-woon, however, objects. He insists they aren't going anywhere yet, arguing that since they came out to hunt with the great heavenly demon, they need to at least kill a tiger before they leave. The heavenly demon is taken aback by his son's bold and unexpected demand, letting out a surprised, "What?" Intrigued by Hwi-woon's audacity, the heavenly demon tells him not to stand around like a dunce and to follow him, accepting the new challenge. Excited and energized by his father's acceptance, Hwi-woon eagerly agrees, clenching his fists in anticipation. In a new location, likely a bamboo forest, the heavenly demon begins the next lesson. He tells Hwi-woon to close his eyes again, informing him the new target is 100 yards away, further than the last prey. He gives Hwi-woon a new, more advanced instruction. This time, he must feel the wind and infuse his energy directly into it. Hwi-woon reflects internally that in all his time learning martial arts in his previous life, he never thought of infusing his energy into the wind. It was a technique no one had ever taught him. Following his father's command, Hwi-woon closes his eyes and once again begins to discharge his energy, this time attempting the difficult technique of infusing it into the wind. Seeing his son's slow and overly careful start, the heavenly demon immediately critiques him. He warns Hwi-woon that such hesitation will reduce the powerful art to a mere petty trick, urging him to send his energy towards the target as quickly as possible to make it viable in a real fight. As Hwi-woon concentrates, he can feel the 2 distinct forces, the natural flow of the wind and the stream of his own blue energy, existing separately. He grits his teeth in frustration, struggling with the core of the problem. He understands the 2 components, but he doesn't know how to combine them. Suddenly, something clicks. A flash of insight strikes him as he has a moment of realization. He has a breakthrough. He finally understands that to infuse his energy into the wind is not to simply ride on it like a current. The true solution dawns on him. What he needs to do is entangle the 2 forces, weaving his energy and the wind together into one. With this new understanding, his energy successfully merges with the wind, shooting forward until it reaches its target, revealing the piercing, glowing eye of a tiger in the distance. Hwi-woon's eyes snap open, wide with a mixture of shock and triumph, as he successfully pinpoints the location of their formidable prey. In a bamboo forest, Hwi-woon shouts in alarm, "There really is a tiger." His father, the heavenly demon, stands next to him, his expression unreadable. The heavenly demon turns to his son with a stern look, questioning his outburst. What's wrong? He advises Hwi-woon, don't get lazy in your training of discharging your energy. The more lines of energy you can maintain, the higher your chances of survival. Hwi-woon obediently replies, understood, father. I'll bear that in mind. Later, Hwi-woon holds up a flask of alcohol, thinking to himself that this is his strongest trump card. As night falls, Hwi-woon and his father sit around a campfire, sharing a drink. The heavenly demon takes a swig and nods in approval, stating, this is good. Hwi-woon takes a drink and feigns weakness, claiming, it's still too strong for me. Internally, however, he admits to himself, that's a lie though. The heavenly demon eyes his son with suspicion. He knows that no demonic human would ever complain about liquor being too strong. He continues to test Hwi-woon, stating that having a vicious heart is more important than being able to drink. He then poses a piercing question. A vicious heart, can you kill me so that you can live? Hwi-woon outwardly denies it. No, how could a child kill his parents? But his inner thoughts reveal his true nature. Honestly, this is a lie too. If I had enough reason to kill him, I could do it even if he's my father. Yet Hwi-woon reflects that this is the first real conversation he's ever had with his father. In this rare moment of connection, he questions if he could truly value his own life over his father's. The heavenly demon's sharp gaze seems to analyze his son's every word, trying to see past the facade. Taking another drink, he tells Hwi-woon, if you're hesitant about that, then you shouldn't say things like having a vicious heart. Hwi-woon accepts the challenge with a calm expression, holding the flask and declaring, I'll have to learn how to drink strong liquor then. The heavenly demon simply watches him, his thoughts hidden behind a silent, stern expression. The scene shifts to a large pavilion under the quiet, starry night sky, indicating a change in time and place. Inside, Hwi-woon is seated alone in a meditative pose, his sword laid before him as he prepares to train his inner energy. He lets out a slow, controlled breath, focusing his mind and spirit. A faint, confident smile plays on Hwi-woon's lips as he feels the results of his training. He thinks to himself, after focusing on training for a few days since my regression, I'm now able to freely infuse my energy into the wind. I'm also able to maintain 3 to 4 lines of it. He hadn't expected his father to teach him this technique. Now, with the ability to sense his surroundings, it feels like having an extra life, allowing him to detect enemies before they can attack. Hwi-woon realizes the immense potential of this power. If he continues his training and learns to release more than 10 lines of energy at once, he might be able to neutralize any stealth techniques used by his enemies. He clenches his fist, filled with newfound determination. He looks resolute, but as he glances at his sword, a new thought gives him pause, beginning with a silent but. Standing alone in the vast hall, Hwi-woon recalls the painful past he is trying to prevent. He thinks to himself, even my father, who is much more skilled, lost to Hwa Mugi because the heavenly demon pavilion was infiltrated. He knows that raw power alone won't be enough to stop a betrayal from within. Hwi-woon continues his thoughts on the past. The heavenly demon pavilion was a fortress, guarded by 3 barrier formations, 6 trap formations, a host of elites, and the 8 demon supremes who were sworn to protect his father. He recalls the factions. In the north, the demonic swordsmen led by the One-Sword Supreme. In the south, the demonic bladesmen led by the Blood Heavens Bladesmen. In the east, there were the Iron Fists of the Eastern Fist faction, led by the formidable undefeated Fist Demon. In the west were the demonic sorcerers of the Western Illusion Formation, led by the deceptive Soul-Stealing Demon. In the northeast resided the Faceless Swordsmen, all of whom wanted to become the evil Smiling Demon. In the southeast were the Drunken Swordsmen, who were perpetually intoxicated alongside the demonic Drunkard. In the southwest were the Poison Fangs and the Poison King, who researched all manner of toxins. And finally, in the northwest were the fanatical monks who followed the demonic Buddha's twisted beliefs. Hwi-woon reflects, back then, I thought the enemy had broken in from the outside. However, that wasn't the case. I realized later that the outer defense was never broken. He concludes with certainty, I'm certain that someone among the 8 demon supremes let Hwa Mugi into the heavenly demon pavilion. There could be more than one traitor. He remembers the grim reality of his past life. The traitor responsible for his father's death was never found. A cold fury settles on Hwi-woon's face. He decides that it doesn't matter who the specific culprit was, because he now treats all 8 demon supremes as traitors. His reasoning is simple. After his father died, none of the supremes sought revenge. Instead, in a shocking act of cowardice, they decided to close down the demonic cult entirely. A wicked smile spreads across Hwi-woon's face. He thinks, that's still an event in the far future, so I know all about the 8 demon supremes. I know the kind of lives they've lived and what their last moments in life were like. His meditation finished, Hwi-woon rises to his feet, his determination echoing in the sound of his steps. With newfound resolve, he walks confidently out of the training hall. His eyes gleam with purpose as he makes a vow. This time, I'll make use of the 8 demon supremes through and through. Hwi-woon approaches the doors of the training hall, ready to put his plans into motion. Just as he is about to leave, he is stopped by a voice from outside asking a servant, Hey fatty, is the second young master still in the training ground? Outside, his loyal attendant, Leon, is being cornered by a group of thugs. Their leader, Yang Po, demands impatiently, "How many days has it been already? I can't wait anymore. Go in and drag him here." Leon is shocked and speechless. From the doorway, Hui Woon's voice cuts through the tension. "Leon, what are you doing there?" Startled, both Leon and Yang Po look over to see Hui Woon standing there. A relieved Leon calls out to him, "Young master." Hui Woon approaches his servant with a look of concern. "I told you to do your own thing while I was training," he says gently. "Were you waiting here for me the whole time I was training?" Yang Po arrogantly strides forward. "You're finally out, second young master. Why are you suddenly training out of nowhere? And you did it for days at that." Hui Woon gives the man a cold, analytical look, immediately identifying him. He thinks to himself, a disciple of the Blood Heaven's bladesman, Yang Po. Hui Woon instantly understands the situation. "You can say the reason why he dares to act this way is wholly because of my father." Hui Woon thinks about the political shift. After his father announced that anyone in the cult could become the successor, being the heavenly demon's son was no longer special. In fact, it fueled the ambitious desires of many to gain notoriety by defeating him. Cutting through the pretense, Hui Woon gets straight to the point, asking Yang Po coolly, "What do you want?" Yang Po sneers, "Don't you already know that? Pyungho can no longer practice martial arts because of you." Hui Woon remains unfazed. "So what, you want me to go look after him or something?" Enraged, Yang Po shouts, "Do you think I'm joking with you right now?" With a slight smirk, Hui Woon dismisses him. "I don't think our relationship is one where we can have serious conversations." Yang Po furiously demands, "You need to take responsibility for crippling him. Go apologize to him officially." But Hui Woon sees through the facade. His eyes narrow as he thinks, "I know why he's come here to ask me to apologize." He knows that the best disciple of the Blood Heaven's bladesman wasn't selected, so now all the other disciples are desperately trying to impress their master by any means necessary. Hui Woon understands Yang Po's real motive. Yang Po wants an official apology from me so that he can claim credit for not making the Blood Heaven's bladesman look bad. Hui Woon calls his bluff. "I don't think your master would necessarily choose you as his best disciple just because you do this." Yang Po sputters, "That's nonsense. I'm only here for Pyungho's sake," before Hui Woon cuts him off with a sharp, "Enough." With an icy glare, Hui Woon completely flips the script. "I want you to be the one to apologize." Yang Po looks at him, confused by the sudden turn of events. "For what?" he asks. "For speaking rudely to my subordinate," Hui Woon says, his gaze unwavering. He points to the shocked Leon. "Apologize to her." Yang Po and his cronies are left speechless, unable to believe what they're hearing. Leon is just as stunned. Leon quickly tries to de-escalate the situation. "It's fine, young master." But Hui Woon is resolute. "I'm not fine with it." Leon is touched and left speechless by her master's unwavering defense of her honor. Hui Woon turns his cold gaze back to Yang Po and repeats his demand. "Yang Po, you dared to speak rudely to my subordinate, so I want you to kneel down and apologize." Yang Po can only let out an incredulous gasp. Pointing a disrespectful finger at Leon, Yang Po sneers, "Did you just ask me to kneel to that fatty over there?" The insult seals his fate. Hui Woon's expression darkens as he mutters, "There you go, running your mouth again." Yang Po completely loses his composure, screaming with rage, "Have you gone crazy? I'd rather die than kneel to her." A predatory smile forms on Hui Woon's face. "You'd rather die," he repeats calmly, his hand already on the hilt of his sword. "That's what I wanted to hear. All right then, I'll grant you your wish." In a flash of movement, Hui Woon draws his sword, its blade humming with a cold, blue energy. The sudden escalation shocks both Yang Po and Leon. They are frozen in place by Hui Woon's blinding speed and palpable killing intent. Sweat beading on his brow, Yang Po grits his teeth, realizing the gravity of the situation. "You've really gone crazy," he snarls. Hui Woon levels his gleaming sword at Yang Po, issuing a chilling ultimatum. "Kneel down and apologize, or fight me. Make your choice." To ensure there is no escape, Hui Woon adds a final taunt. "Just so you know, your master won't be pleased if you choose to retreat." Yang Po hesitates, his face contorted with anger and fear, trapped by the impossible choice. Before the clash, Leon asks why he is going to such lengths. Hui Woon explains, "I don't care if you're here to look for me. I can even understand if you're here to seek revenge in a group." He finishes with a powerful declaration, his eyes fixed on Yang Po. "But I won't allow you to insult my subordinate." Leon is visibly moved by his words. Yang Po bursts into manic laughter. Ha ha ha, "You're really trying to kill me over that fucking pig?" he asks incredulously. Hui Woon's expression remains ice cold. "That's how much she means to me." His pride wounded and his rage boiling over, Yang Po makes his choice. With a furious roar, he charges forward, swinging his massive blade down with deadly force. As the attack descends, Yang Po's own men cry out in alarm, "Don't do it, Yang Po." They realize too late that he has made a fatal mistake. Leon can only watch in horror, calling out, "Young master." Hui Woon and his attendant Leon are blocked by a group of warriors. Their leader, a large, bald man named Yang Po, stands forward, holding a massive sword, his face set in an arrogant expression. Yang Po addresses Hui Woon with a sneer, acknowledging his status as the son of the heavenly demon, yet showing no respect. He arrogantly declares that since Hui Woon is the son of the heavenly demon, he won't take his life, but will settle for just taking an arm instead. While Hui-woon remains perfectly calm and unfazed by the threat, Li-an and the man beside her look on in absolute terror. Hui-woon simply watches as Yang Po gets into a stance, preparing to swing his enormous blade. With a powerful roar, Yang Po swings his sword, aiming to cripple Hui-woon. But in an instant, Hui-woon closes the distance. Before Yang Po can even register what happened, Hui-woon has him by the throat, his sword already at the man's neck. Li-an and the other subordinate stare in wide-eyed shock at the sudden, unbelievable turn of events. Hui-woon looks down at the captured man with cold eyes, telling him that his own mouth was the cause of his impending death. He continues, stating that Yang Po used that mouth to insult his subordinate, as blood begins to drip from Yang Po's lips. And that very same mouth, Hui-woon finishes, refused to apologize. Li-an watches, her expression a mix of fear and awe. With a single, fluid motion, Hui-woon decapitates Yang Po, sending a spray of blood into the air. The brutal attack is executed flawlessly, a testament to Hui-woon's overwhelming skill. Hui-woon's face is splattered with blood, his expression remaining cold and ruthless. Yang Po's headless body collapses to the ground in a pool of blood as his subordinates scream his name in horror. One of Yang Po's men, enraged and terrified, yells at Hui-woon, asking if he thinks he can handle the consequences of his actions. Hui-woon turns his cold gaze on the man and remarks that his mouth resembles Yang Po's, a clear threat. With an intimidating glare, Hui-woon gives them a chilling order to pass on his words exactly as he said them, or he will find them at dusk. Hui-woon watches as the terrified men carry away Yang Po's corpse, leaving a trail of blood on the ground. Once they are gone, Li-an timidly approaches Hui-woon from behind, asking him why he did what he did. She clarifies her question with a trembling voice, asking why he would go so far for someone like her. Hui-woon reflects on Li-an's loyalty, noting that even after being emotionally hurt, her first concern is for him. He turns to her and explains that it wasn't just for her. He killed a man who deserved to die, and that the Blood Heaven's bladesman wouldn't have let the insult slide anyway. As Li-an remains fearful, Hui-woon thinks to himself that her fear is justified. He considers the power of the 8 martial masters of the demonic cult, a group so influential that not even his father, the heavenly demon, can afford to ignore them. He internally acknowledges the dangerous path he has just taken. The Blood Heaven's bladesman is one of those very masters, and Hui-woon has just crippled one of his disciples and killed another. Hui-woon explains his reasoning to the still worried Li-an. He believes the Blood Heaven's bladesman won't intervene, as there's nothing to gain but criticism for failing to teach his disciples properly. When Li-an suggests his pride might be hurt, Hui-woon smirks. He coolly tells her that the Blood Heaven's bladesman doesn't have that kind of pride. Li-an looks down, contemplating his words. Hui-woon lines in close, gently telling Li-an that in any case, she doesn't need to worry so much about him. As they walk away from the bloody scene, Hui-woon's strategic mind is already at work. He thinks to himself that, contrary to what he told Li-an, he actually stands to gain something from killing Yang Po. He lays out his plan internally. By defeating Gu Pyungho and killing Yang Po, he has attracted the attention of everyone in the cult. If the succession war were scored with points, he would have just scored one for himself. Li-an stops him and formally addresses him as young master, thanking him for his actions that day. With a bright, genuine smile, she confesses that she was truly happy he took her side, and she means it from the bottom of her heart. Seeing her pure happiness, Hui-woon is momentarily taken aback, a soft, unreadable expression on his face. He quickly puts on a gruff exterior, telling her she'd better be thankful and not forget this for the rest of her life. Li-an gives a cheerful okay, but inwardly his thoughts are gentle. He wants Li-an to keep smiling like that, to live her life with that same happiness. Later, Hui-woon stands alone in a quiet courtyard, leaning against a large rock as he reflects on his journey. His thoughts turn to his past life. He remembers being drowned in a sense of defeat as he ran away after the demonic cult was disbanded, a depression so great it left him without a goal. He quietly wonders how things would have turned out if he hadn't discovered the great regression technique, allowing him this second chance. His eyes narrow with determination as a memory flashes through his mind. He sees a vision of his past, weaker self, a stark contrast to the man he is now. The vision shifts to an imposing, intimidating figure with wild white hair and glowing red eyes, sitting menacingly. This is the master of the men he just dealt with. The Blood Heaven's bladesman. Hui-woon has knowingly and strategically provoked one of the most powerful masters in the demonic cult. Hui-woon is taken aback. He hadn't anticipated his opponent's swift arrival. He questions whether he can evade the attack in his current, weakened state. He laments that despite the extensive knowledge from his past life, his body lacks the necessary inner energy, making it impossible for him to dodge the impending blow. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as the gravity of his vulnerable situation sinks in. He's cornered. The scene shifts, revealing Hui-woon sitting calmly on a rock opposite the formidable Blood Heaven's bladesman. The bladesman stares intently at Hui-woon, who remains silent, his expression unreadable. A sinister, knowing smile spreads across the Blood Heaven's bladesman's face. Breaking the silence, the bladesman gets straight to the point, demanding to know why Hui Woon killed his disciple. Hui Woon smirks, his response dripping with arrogance. He casually states that he did it simply because the man acted like a fool. The bladesman closes his eyes, seemingly amused by the young man's audacity. He then provokes Hui Woon, questioning if he came to pick a fight with the heavenly demon's youngest son, who clearly has no patience for fools. In a swift motion, Hui Woon rises to his feet, unfazed by the provocation. The bladesman continues his taunts, threatening to cut off Hui Woon's head and present it to the heavenly demon, just to see if his father would even care. Hui Woon coolly retorts, expressing doubt that the bladesman's sword could even touch his head, reminding him of his father's terrifying eyes. The Blood Heaven's bladesman's expression tightens slightly, a flicker of surprise or perhaps contemplation at Hui Woon's sharp response. Hui Woon watches him, his eyes narrowed, maintaining a wary but confident stance. Suddenly, the bladesman leaps into action, bringing his massive sword down with incredible force. The blade smashes into the ground right between them, shattering the rock with a powerful impact. Hui Woon looks down at the result, genuinely confused by the display. What is this? He wonders. The bladesman declares that this test will show how much the heavenly demon cares. He divides the shattered ground, stating, "The small ratio belongs to you. I take the majority." Hui Woon is momentarily speechless, staring at the line the bladesman has drawn, a clear symbol of his supposed lesser worth. The two stand in silence, the tension thick in the air as the meaning of the bladesman's action hangs between them. Hui Woon reaches down, his finger tracing the line in the dirt, a thoughtful expression on his face. He smirks, turning the tables once again. "I'm his son after all. I'll probably matter at least this much. I'm 7, you're 3, he declares, claiming the larger share for himself. The Blood Heaven's bladesman lets out a wide, appreciative grin, clearly impressed by Hui Woon's unwavering nerve. Pushing the test to its limit, he poses a final, deadly question. "We'll know if we test it out. Do you think you'll kill me or let me live if I carry solely your head in my arms?" With a confident smile, Hui Woon replies, "I think you greatly underestimate the love of a father that this heavenly demon here has." The Blood Heaven's sword demon tightens his grip on his sword, undeterred by Hui Woon's words. His aura explodes with killing intent, his eyes glowing red as he snarls. "Let's test that out then." Hui Woon's confident facade shatters, replaced by a look of pure terror as he realizes the sword demon is serious. Stammering, Hui Woon quickly backpedals, insisting there's no need to test it out. He argues that while his father has 2 sons, there's only one of the sword demon, implying he's far more replaceable. The sword demon's menacing aura dissipates, and he smiles, conceding the point. "You're not as foolish as my disciple," he admits. As the sword demon turns to leave, Hui Woon retorts that if his disciple was anything like him, he would still be alive. The sword demon stops and addresses him formally as second young master. He gives a final, cryptic warning, stating that he has lived his whole life with misfortune and hopes they don't have to meet often. With a slight smirk, Hui Woon coolly replies, "I'll be sure to remember that." Once the sword demon is gone, Hui Woon is suddenly startled, sensing another presence. He looks up towards the rooftops, searching for the source of the disturbance under the full moon. The tension of the encounter finally takes its toll on his weak body, and he lets out a pained cough. Lifting his robe, Hui Woon reveals angry bruises on his torso, left by the sword demon's immense pressure. He grits his teeth, cursing that cursed old man and his rough methods. Hui Woon reflects on the encounter, realizing that the Blood Heaven's sword demon may act recklessly, but in reality, he calculates and plans everything meticulously. He understands now that the sword demon's repeated threats to carry his head to his father weren't just a bluff. He was genuinely considering it. He deduces the real reason for the visit. The sword demon came to see him personally, having been impressed by Hui Woon's unique wish to hunt alongside his father. With dawning realization, Hui Woon understands the sword demon wasn't just seeking revenge. He was testing him, seeing if he was worthy. He wonders, is my first opponent the Blood Heaven's sword demon? A surge of blue energy erupts around Hui Woon as he processes this new challenge, his resolve hardening. He sits down, channeling the energy as he begins to meditate and recover from the strenuous encounter. Suddenly, his eyes snap open. He's not alone. He senses another powerful presence observing him. A figure lands gracefully on the rooftop above, swift and silent as the night. The figure leaps from the roof, moving with an imposing and familiar presence. An imposing man with a commanding aura lands before him. Hui Woon looks up in shock, recognizing him instantly. "Father," he asks, his voice filled with surprise. Perched on the rooftop, the heavenly demon doesn't waste time with pleasantries. "I heard you killed the disciple of the Blood Heaven's sword demon," he states, his voice echoing in the night. Without hesitation, Hui Woon confirms his action, stating coldly, yes, his disciple was deserving of death. The heavenly demon dismisses the justification. Whether he deserved to die or not doesn't matter. The Blood Heaven's sword demon has come looking for me in regards to that matter. Hui Woon is taken aback. His father continues, looking out over the estate. He wants you to receive punishment. Hui Woon clarifies, and the heavenly demon confirms it, noting how unexpected it was for the sword demon to make such a fuss over a single disciple. In that moment, Hui Woon understands everything. he realizes the sword demon is not seeking revenge, but is testing the relationship between father and son to see how he would be punished. Hui-Woon's thoughts race as he connects the dots. The sword demon's ultimate goal is to find out if the heavenly demon considers him a true candidate for succession. Playing along with the charade, the heavenly demon declares, "So, I intend to punish you." Hui-Woon protests, arguing there's no justification. His father calmly retorts, "Justification can be made." Hui-Woon is left speechless by his father's cold, pragmatic stance. The heavenly demon then shifts the conversation, reminding Hui-Woon of a question he asked during a past hunting trip about which demon supreme he trusted most. Hui-Woon quietly confirms that he remembers the conversation. A flashback shows the scene. Hui-Woon, his father, and others gathered around a campfire as he posed the question. In the flashback, the heavenly demon remained silent, contemplating the question without giving an answer. Back in the present, Hui-Woon recalls the moment, stating that his father never gave him an answer back then. With newfound clarity, Hui-Woon gives the answer himself, declaring, "I don't trust anyone, not even the demon supremes." The heavenly demon dismisses Hui-Woon's surface-level excuses about hierarchy and discipline. He demands his son's true, unfiltered thoughts. The heavenly demon listens, his expression serious and expectant, waiting for the real answer. Hui-Woon meets his father's gaze, his own expression now firm and resolute. He begins to explain his true philosophy. "I feel like, somewhere along the line, we've lost the path of the demon." The heavenly demon repeats the phrase, intrigued. Hui-Woon quietly but firmly confirms his controversial statement. His interest piqued, the heavenly demon poses the ultimate ideological question. "What does the path of the demon mean to you?" Hui-Woon delivers his stunning thesis. "I think the path of the demon would be the belief that only our cult has to defeat absolute evil." The heavenly demon is visibly taken aback, clearly not expecting such a profound and unusual definition. Hui-Woon explains that he doesn't see the orthodox faction as their true opposite, prompting his father to ask what is. Hui-Woon concludes his point, stating their true enemy is absolute evil. The heavenly demon is stunned into silence by this revolutionary idea. Hui-Woon elaborates, describing an absolute evil so cowardly and vile that no human can bear it, an evil that spreads like a plague. He argues that while the orthodox faction's justice might work against lesser evils, they are completely incapable of dealing with an absolute evil that even other demons would despise. The heavenly demon listens in silence as Hui-Woon explains his reasoning. The orthodox faction is fundamentally rooted in being forgiving. Hui-Woon poses a powerful question, asking how a faction that values people could ever be a match for an evil that has completely forsaken its own humanity. With his aura flaring, Hui-Woon delivers his final, chilling proclamation. "We are the only existence within the Murem that can get rid of evil that's atrocious and wicked by being even more wicked." Hui-Woon passionately explains his philosophy to his father. He argues that the true path of the demon is realized only when the great evil, which even the righteous orthodox faction cannot overcome, is brought to its knees before them. Standing atop a roof against the night sky, Hui-Woon concludes that this achievement marks the true accomplishment of the demon's path. The heavenly demon listens to his son's words, his expression unreadable as he processes this radical new idea. Hui-Woon emphasizes that without accomplishing this true path, their cult won't be able to go far. He believes they must be willing to punish themselves in order to survive. The heavenly demon remains silent, contemplating his son's profound and unexpected declaration. Hui-Woon is certain that his father, the heavenly demon, has never conceived of or encountered such a philosophy before. He explains that this unique insight didn't come from his time in the cult, but from the harsh experiences he endured while wandering the central plains for his entire life. The heavenly demon, finally breaking his silence, looks at Hui-Woon and asks if he has any other arrogant thoughts to share. Hui-Woon calmly replies that what he has said should be sufficient, standing his ground before his powerful father. The heavenly demon's expression shifts slightly as he reveals he now understands why the Blood Heaven's sword demon wanted him to punish Hui-Woon. The heavenly demon explains that the sword demon must have seen something special in Hui-Woon and is using him to test his potential. Hui-Woon considers this, guessing that the sword demon saw him as a possible candidate to be the next heavenly demon. He continues his thought, musing that whether the old man saw him as a successor or a future problem, he certainly has a good eye for noticing the extraordinary. The heavenly demon listens to his son's analysis, his face giving away nothing. After a moment of silence, the heavenly demon commands Hui-Woon to follow him, turning to lead the way. Surprised by the sudden order, Hui-Woon asks where they could possibly be going at such a late hour. The scene shifts to a large, imposing stone sign carved with the words, "Minor Heaven Cave." Hui-Woon and the heavenly demon arrive at the entrance to the cave, a massive sealed gate set into a remote, snowy mountain. Hui-Woon internally recounts what he knows about the Minor Heaven Cave. It is a place of testing for potential candidates to become the next heavenly demon. He recalls the grave danger of the cave's trials. While entry is simple, failure to complete the trials means being trapped inside forever. The success rate is a grim 50-50. He knows that half of the heavenly demon's own blood relatives who attempted the trial lost their lives. The place is so dangerous that even his overly ambitious brother has never dared to mention going in. Despite the risks, Hui-Woon's resolve is firm. He recognizes this trial as a necessary step he must overcome if he ever wants to achieve his goal of becoming the heavenly demon. Hui-Woon finally asks the obvious question to his father, "Are you asking me to go into this place?" The heavenly demon replies that he also entered the cave when he was around Hui-Woon's age. Stealing his resolve, Hui-Woon poses a challenging question to his father, "How long did it take for you to get out?" The heavenly demon looks back, his simple answer setting a legendary benchmark for his son to overcome: 2 months. Hui-Woon is stunned by the revelation. He thinks about how his father is renowned as the most talented martial artist among all the heavenly demons, yet it still took him a full 2 months to emerge from the cave. The heavenly demon clarifies the weight of his achievement, explaining that he was the only one to ever make it out in 2 months. For everyone else, the average time was 3 years. Hui-Woon questions the fairness of being thrown into such a deadly trial without any preparation. The heavenly demon coldly reminds him that this is his punishment. Hui-Woon falls silent, looking at his father as he processes the gravity of the situation and the true meaning behind this test. Testing his father's true intentions, Hui-Woon asks if he is being sent to die merely to appease the Blood Heaven's sword demon. He presses further, asking the heavenly demon directly if he truly doesn't care about his son's death, or if this is a test, hoping Hui-Woon will emerge stronger. A confident smirk spreads across Hui-Woon's face. He accepts the challenge, declaring that since it has come to this, he will emerge from the cave even faster than his father did. The heavenly demon lets out a slight huff, a hint of a smile on his face. His final words to his son are a simple, yet profound command: just try to keep yourself alive. With his father gone, Hui-Woon walks alone down the long, eerie corridor of the minor heaven cave, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the silence. As he takes in the desolate surroundings, he can't help but wonder just how terrible this place must be for so many to have become trapped within it. He continues his solitary walk down the hallway, which is lined with ominous, glowing lanterns that do little to pierce the oppressive darkness. An overhead view reveals the immense and intimidating scale of the cave's interior, making Hui-Woon appear small and isolated. Hui-Woon finally stops, his attention caught by a large stone monolith standing in the middle of the path. The monolith displays the rules of the trial. First, he must defeat all enemies without using sword aura. Second, if he fails, he gets another chance after 10 days. Third, he must stand within the Crimson Circle to begin. Hui-Woon notes the 10-day penalty with concern. He then spots several large urns nearby, labeled grain balls, and realizes this meager sustenance is all he'll have to survive on during the trial. Filled with resolve, Hui-Woon decides there's no need to waste any more time. He declares he will start right away and steps firmly into the glowing crimson circle on the floor. With a look of intense focus, Hui-Woon braces himself as the trial begins the moment he enters the circle. Instantly, the walls clang open and dozens of wooden training mannequins are launched into the room, surrounding him from all sides. The sheer number of opponents is overwhelming as countless mannequins, all identical, form a silent, menacing army waiting to attack. Hui-Woon quickly analyzes his new enemies, observing the distinct red marks on their bodies and correctly deducing that these are his targets. Without a moment's hesitation, Hui-Woon leaps into action, his blade a blur as he begins to skillfully cut down the attacking mannequins. Continuing from the last chapter, Hui-Woon is in the middle of a fierce battle. He skillfully wields his sword, deflecting and slicing through the relentless attacks of the mechanical puppets. With a powerful swing, he sends a wave of energy, shattering the puppets that swarm him from all sides. Their metallic bodies break apart upon impact. Even with his advanced knowledge and skills from his past life, Hui-Woon finds the puppets more resilient than he anticipated, admitting to himself, "They're tougher than I thought." He looks over the field of broken dummies, some still twitching and trying to rise. A moment of surprise crosses his face as more puppets stand ready to attack in the background. Gritting his teeth, Hui-Woon's expression hardens with resolve. He knows he cannot afford to fail this trial, shouting inwardly, "I can't let them go down." He lunges back into the fray, his blade a blur as he dismantles another puppet with a swift, brutal kick and a follow-up strike. As Hui-Woon stands amidst the carnage of the first trial, the training hall is littered with the destroyed bodies of the wooden puppets. But the trial is not over yet. Another puppet rises, but Hui-Woon is relentless, striking it down with a series of precise and powerful blows, leaving no room for it to counter. Suddenly, a powerful force erupts from his palm, blasting through a line of puppets and sending debris flying across the room. Only one remains. With a determined look, Hui-Woon rushes forward, declaring it's time to finish this. The last one, he thinks, as he prepares a final stomp. The final puppet lunges, its red eye glowing ominously, but it is no match for Hui-Woon's decisive attack. With a final, elegant slash of his sword, Hui-Woon dispatches the last of the puppets, ending the first trial. Surveying the room full of defeated enemies, Hui-Woon lets out a breath of relief. He reflects that a single moment of carelessness almost cost him 10 days of effort. He acknowledges that with his skills before his regression, passing this trial would have been impossible. With the first test complete, he now faces the path to the next stage. As he walks down the corridor, he suddenly stops, his his attention caught by something on the wall. He discovers messages carved into the stone, left by previous challengers. They detail their own struggles and successes. "I succeeded in 9 tries," one reads, while another took 37. Reading through the desperate messages of those who came before, some who thought they would die, others who couldn't find an exit, he understands these are the records of his ancestors. His eyes land on a particular message at the very end. Something about the handwriting feels strangely familiar. A look of shocked recognition dawns on his face as he realizes who wrote it. The message simply reads, "Idiots." It was his father. A small, amused smile plays on Hwi-woon's lips. He can't help but find it funny that his father would leave such a blunt and insulting message for their own ancestor. Putting the thought aside, Hwi-woon turns his attention to the large, ornate gate that marks the entrance to the next trial. He steps forward, a glowing red sigil on the floor before the immense doors, ready to face whatever challenge lies ahead. As the doors to the second trial presumably open, his expression is calm and composed, ready for the next test. He enters a new chamber and is immediately met with an impressive sight. A wall covered in an array of different weapons, mostly swords of various designs. Seeing as how there are so many types of weapons, he logically concludes that the next trial must involve making use of them. Hwi-woon is presented with the rules for the second trial. He must use one of the swords to split a stone in half within 2 hours, with the option of using sword aura. Failure means a 20-day wait for another attempt. To begin, he must stand in the crimson circle. Without hesitation, Hwi-woon steps into the glowing red circle on the floor, accepting the challenge. Before him, on a stone pedestal, sits a perfectly smooth, round stone ball. This is the object he must split. Hwi-woon observes the stone, his expression thoughtful. His 40 years of experience from his past life tell him that this simple-looking trial is not what it seems. He considers the generous 2-hour time limit excessive for such a task. He knows that with his enhanced sword aura, he could destroy hundreds of these stones in that time, which makes him suspicious. He ponders the situation, convinced that there must be a hidden catch or a specific reason behind the instructions. He selects an ornate sword from the wall, its blade gleaming in the dim light of the chamber. Deciding to test the stone's durability, he strikes it with a normal slash. Sparks fly, but the stone remains completely unharmed. Hwi-woon assesses the result, confirming his suspicion. He concludes that simply slashing it won't be enough. Since a normal attack failed, he decides to use his overwhelming power to force his way through. "I'll use enhanced sword aura to cut this in half," he resolves. He channels his power, and a brilliant blue aura envelops him and his sword. His eye glows with energy as he prepares to quickly move on to the next trial. However, just as he is about to unleash his powerful attack, he freezes. A sudden thought stops him in his tracks. Standing over the stone, he pulls back his attack. His instincts scream at him that it would be far too easy to pass the trial this way. There has to be more to it. Pausing his assault, he begins to wonder how his ancestors managed to clear this same trial. He recalls the messages left on the wall. One boasted of splitting it in 1 try with enhanced sword aura. Another failed 89 times before finally resorting to aura. But one message claimed to have done it without any aura at all, a feat the others couldn't believe. The other messages reinforced this doubt, with challengers who couldn't use the aura calling the successful one a liar. This makes Hwi-woon think, what about father? He remembers his father's cryptic note, "Absolute nonsense. If there's heat, you lose." The message finally clicks, and a look of sudden understanding crosses his face. He finds it strange. His father would usually just berate them, as he did with the idiot's comment in the first trial. Why would he leave a helpful clue this time? Hwi-woon's mind races back to the trial's instructions. He focuses on a key detail. The wording was, "You may use sword aura, not that you must asterisk." This distinction is the key. The truth dawns on him. The trial can only be passed asterisk without using sword aura. His father's warning about heat was the critical hint, as enhanced sword aura generates intense heat. Armed with this new understanding, he attacks the stone again, this time relying on pure skill and technique, without imbuing his blade with any aura. He pants, exhausted. Despite repeated strikes, he can't even leave a scratch on the stone. Frustration mounts as he realizes his time is running out. Temptation arises. With time running low, he grits his teeth and considers just using his enhanced sword aura to pass the trial and be done with it. He lets out a long, frustrated sigh. Time is running out and his attempts have been fruitless. For a moment, he looks up in exasperation, on the verge of giving up on this seemingly impossible task. But just as despair sets in, a crucial memory of his father surfaces. He vividly recalls seeing him split an identical stone in half, effortlessly, without any trace of an aura. The memory sparks a new line of thought, reinforcing his conviction. Inspired by the memory of his father, a new possibility dawns on Hwi-woon. He wonders, could it be? He closes his eyes and extends his senses, focusing his perception far beyond what his normal sight would allow. His heightened senses envelop the stone, probing its surface and delving into its very structure. A web of faint energy lines becomes visible to him, revealing the stone's hidden properties. His eyes snap open in astonishment as he perceives something completely unexpected. He realizes that through this heightened state, he can detect a faint, imperceptible line running across the ball, a natural fault line he couldn't see before. Confirming it's not an illusion, he sees that the line forms a perfect circle. This is the key. He prepares his stance, aiming his blade along this precise line. With a single, focused strike guided by pure skill, he brings his sword down exactly on the fault line he discovered. A wild, triumphant grin spreads across his face as the stone splits perfectly in two. He shouts in exhilaration, "I did it." But as the two halves of the stone fall apart, he notices something nestled inside one of the pieces. His triumphant expression quickly shifts to one of shock and disbelief as he stares at the hidden object. He begins. He recognizes the small, glowing purple orb immediately. It's a demonic essence pill, an incredibly rare and powerful item. Holding the pill, he recalls its properties from his past life. For a demonic human, consuming it provides a tremendous boost in energy. He finally understands the true nature of the trial. Had he used enhanced sword aura, the intense heat from the attack would have caused the delicate pill to explode. A knowing smile graces his lips. The pill isn't just a prize, it's a specific reward for those with the skill and wisdom to pass the trial using pure swordsmanship alone. Remembering his father's hint, "Don't create heat," Woon offers a silent moment of gratitude before consuming the pill without hesitation. He immediately sits in a meditative posture to absorb the pill's immense power, and a potent purple aura begins to radiate from his body. The energy courses through him, his spiritual form glowing brightly as he cultivates the demonic essence. The purple energy swirls and concentrates, growing more powerful as he fully integrates the pill's power into his system. He opens his eyes, the cultivation complete. He can already feel a fundamental change within himself. A surge of immense power flows through his body, a strength he hasn't felt since his regression. He finally has the internal energy he so desperately needed. His moment of triumph is followed by the appearance of the next monolith, presenting the rules for the third trial: differentiate life and death. Woon contemplates the enigmatic title of the third trial, wondering what kind of test differentiating life and death could possibly be. As he stands within the crimson circle, a stone table rises from the floor, revealing a grid filled with various plants and herbs. He examines the assortment of plants laid out before him. The task is to distinguish the life-giving herbs from the deadly poisons. Woon quickly grasps the nature of the trial, a test of his knowledge, requiring him to differentiate edible herbs from deadly poisons. He smiles, reminiscing about his past life. He recalls the grueling days he spent searching for rare ingredients for a person named Gwai Ryonja, scaling treacherous cliffs just for a single flower. Through those experiences, from diving into the deep sea to exploring dense forests, he gained an encyclopedic knowledge of all sorts of herbs and poisons, including their effects. With a vast repository of knowledge from his previous life, he confidently reaches out, knowing this trial will be an easy pass for him. His eyes scan the selection, and he instantly identifies the one safe plant among the deadly assortment. As he holds up the correct herb, the stone tablet glows, signaling that he has successfully cleared the third trial. The tablet then retracts into the floor, confirming the trial's completion. He realizes the cruel design of the trial. It's meant to punish those who guess, forcing anyone without knowledge to consume the plants and suffer the consequences to find the right one. Without hesitation, he plucks the correct item, a small ginseng-like root, passing the test instantly. The chamber falls silent again after he presents the correct herb, indicating his success. Woon waits, but nothing new appears. He wonders if the trials are over. He takes the time to read more of his ancestors' messages about this trial. They are filled with complaints about its absurdity and the pain of being poisoned, with one hilariously lamenting that he lost his hair after 96 tries. Then he finds his father's comment on the trial: "Don't count on something like luck." Woon chuckles, realizing this meant his father also learned by trial and error, but managed to remember everything. He strides forward, amused that they were both able to keep their hair. Finally, the monolith for the last challenge appears, its title grim: The Last Trial. The rules are chillingly simple. First, survive the illusory life and death trap formation. Second, and most importantly, if you die in the trap, you die for real. Woon stares at the rules, contemplating the severity of the final test, a trial where failure means permanent death. He glances at the messages left by his ancestors regarding this last trial. They speak of its horrors, with one vowing revenge on its creator and another swearing never to set foot in it again. Among the fearful messages, he finds his father's final piece of advice for this trial, a simple, two-word command: don't rest. Woon understands the hint is not just for the trial. He recognizes it as profound advice for how he should live his life from now on. He must always push forward, never resting on his laurels. Taking the final lesson to heart, he steps through the swirling portal into the last trial. He is transported to a vast, desolate wasteland under a pale, empty sky. He takes in the environment, the feel of the wind, the sight of a lizard skittering across the cracked earth. Everything seems incredibly lifelike. Kneeling down, he touches the dry, cracked ground. His suspicion is confirmed. He mutters, "Feels real." He lets the sand run through his fingers, marveling at the formation's power. To think that an illusion could create things that feel so real is astonishing. His thoughts are interrupted as a horde of grotesque, zombie-like figures begins to emerge from the dust. he notes that although they are illusions, he can feel their presences as if they were truly alive. He stands his ground as the horde surrounds him, feeling the palpable, chilling intent to kill radiating from each and every one of them. But instead of fear, a slow, predatory smile spreads across his face. He understands that this is truly a golden opportunity for him. This deadly trial is the perfect environment to rapidly regain his battle senses and adapt to his newly empowered body. With newfound determination, he draws his sword, not to survive, but to dominate. He charges headfirst into the undead horde, his blade flashing as he begins to cut them down with brutal efficiency. He moves with fluid grace, effortlessly parrying a blow and countering with a fatal strike of his own. Surrounded on all sides, he becomes a whirlwind of steel, fighting with the skill of a master warrior against the endless tide of enemies. He unleashes a powerful horizontal slash, carving a path through the enemy ranks. He realizes that since he's not fighting humans, he can fight all of them without any hesitation, unleashing the full extent of his power in a brilliant beam of destructive energy. He feels the power flowing through him, grateful for the demonic essence pill. Thanks to its energy, he can fight at full strength, something he couldn't have done before. He stands as the sole living being in a sea of death, as countless more undead abominations swarm towards him, drawn by his presence. Completely encircled, Hwiwoon stands firm, glowing with power. To him, this isn't a life or death struggle, it's the ultimate training ground and he is ready to master it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more awesome stories.